probably know that it's based around a pay crisis between the players and the league owners. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how public relations is related to the NBA lockout. First, I'm going to tell you what public relations is. I'm going to tell you what the goals of public relations are. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the NBA's unique approach to their public relations and also how that is related to the NBA lockout. So from this presentation, I hope that you're going to be able to identify acts of public relation in the future and decide if you think they were effective or not. And then I also hope that you're going to be able to take away a second perspective on the NBA lockout. So first, let's talk about what is public relations. By definition, public relations is a management function between an organization and the public. So really what that's saying is that it's the function that manages the relationship between the organization and the public and how we perceive it. A publicist or a PR executive's goal is to create favorable publicity for the client they represent. So right now, BP has a pretty huge favorable publicity campaign going on after the oil spill. There are lots of clients of PR. It can be just about anybody. Politicians, government agencies, performers, business corporations, and religious bodies. Tools for PR, most of you would know, are news releases, press conferences, speaking engagements, and even community service projects or starting up different charities. And it's also important to note that a lot of people think that advertising and PR are one and the same, but really advertising focuses on one product and the public relations focuses on usually the organization as a whole, but sometimes they can come together and have one campaign. And a good example would be Toyota. They, after they recalled millions of cars for the faulty floor mats for the sticking gas pedals, they launched a huge PR and advertisement campaign together. So in the commercials, not only were they advertising their Camry, they were also talking about the goodness of the company and Toyota's promise to their customers. So next, let's talk about the goals of PR. And the two main goals of public relations are to create goodwill and to present a favorable image of the company. So basically, it's to create and maintain and protect an organization's reputation, enhance its prestige, and present a favorable image. So basically, they're trying to, with public relations, they're trying to lessen the gap between how an organization sees itself and how the public sees the organization. All right, and there are a couple elements to consider when you're putting together a public relations campaign, and first and foremost, it's the audience or the public that you're trying to speak to. You want to figure out who you're responsive, who you need to be responsive to and responsible to, and who you really need to get the message out to. And in order to do that, you need to do a lot of research and analysis in order to figure out all the factors of the situation. You also need to figure out what the goals of your campaign are. And that is, do you want to better the reputation of the company? Do you want to attract new customers? Or do you want to create closer ties with the community? And then you need to figure out what your medium of communication is going to be. Is that going to be print or TV? Or a lot of public relations companies now are going to social media like Facebook and Twitter to try to launch their public relations campaign. And they have more of a two-way communication between the organization and the public. And it's also really important to note that public relations is not always used in crisis management. It is often used in crisis management, like with Britney Spears, and that was a successful campaign because obviously she came back and is still a superstar. So it often is used in crisis management, and sometimes it fails, like with Howard Dean in the 2004 presidential election. They launched a huge public relations campaign after his scream, and his ratings totally dropped, and he was out of the race after that. So now let's talk a little bit about the NBA and how this is related to public relations. The NBA has a pretty unique approach to their public relations campaign. They try to be as proactive as possible in setting the agenda of its league, and that means that they are trying to catch the attention of the media instead of the media coming to them. The NBA commissioner says that the NBA wants to create the stories themselves rather than be at the mercy of the media. And as most of you might remember, there was an like a little poll of Americans, and they said Americans believe that NBA players were more likely than other athletes to disrespect fans and cheat on their wives, and half the respondents thought that this was a shame that this was happening to the NBA. So they learned that, and they also learned that it was just important to win the battle of the public perception with the NBA as it was to win the battle in the boardroom with all the team owners. So how has the NBA lockout become a PR battle? First, let's talk about what the lockout's about. According to Forbes, 17 of the league's 30 teams lost money last year, and over $23 million with some of the teams. So the goal of the lockout is to make sure that all 30 franchises are making profits instead of just the top 13. And in the past couple of years, there's only been 5 teams consecutively who have made a profit. So that's their main goal. And there's a lot of costs of the lockout. Right now, it's going to decrease the amount of jobs in the economy. There's a lot of negative PR going on about the NBA and its players. And then there's also the reputation of the owners. They're kind of coming off as greedy. And so are the players. So the question is the media giving fair attention to all sides of the argument? And Carmelo Anthony, as most of you might know, he came out he came out saying that the players need to have their own public relations campaign because he feels like they're not being heard and that the media is focusing mostly on the owners and the league and what they're trying to get done. So he suggested that they come out with their own public relations campaign. He said that a players-only press conference would be a good idea, and so that they could answer to the public and kind of uphold their reputation and kind of try to get rid of that reputation that they got in the 1998 lockout. He also suggested a Twitter campaign, which a lot of celebrities and companies are coming to do. So they were using these hashtags like Let Us Play and Stand United. But I've been on Twitter for about a year, and I've only seen this trend. I haven't seen a trend in months, to be honest with you. Right when it first started in July. So this has been not a very good public relations campaign for them because of the laxities of co-involvement. And a lot of people argue that the players aren't going to get anywhere because their only public relations campaign, they're still going to be fighting for a bigger chunk of the revenue, which is just decreasing every day with the amount of games that are canceled. So to summarize, I told you a little bit about what public relations is and its goals, how the NBA treats its public relations, and how the public relations is involved in the NBA lockout. I hope you were able to take away a little something about PR, and if none of that interests